I went to 10pointplan.com, which is still up and identifies some phantom revenue. The first thing that happened was that not one single item in the 10-point plan was used to finance the tax cut. Not even one. What we heard, what has happened is that we have had a shift, not a tax cut, we have had a shift from an inequitable, unfair, arbitrary tax that a tiny percentage of the country has been burdened with to a fairer tax. Consumption taxes are fairer. They are not perfect, but they are better than income taxes. The problem with the income tax, the 1.5 plan, wasn't the 1.5, it was the financing. The petrol tax and the departure tax, which is the bulk of the financing, are tax revenues you can bank on. They are easy to collect. The overworked and overburdened people at tax administration don't have to go knock on anybody's door and spend 2 weeks trying to find out how they are being fooled up. And I'll tell you something. I know there was a concern that consumption taxes tend to be regressive. But I make the 3 points. One I've made already. It's not as bad as income tax. 2, a petrol tax is quite a progressive tax. Okay? Most of you, well, not most of you, many of you, the kind of vehicles you came here in, you're going to pay a lot of that tax. Many of the people that work for you, who came on the bus, are going to pay only a tiny portion of it. As far as consumption taxes go, it's a pretty good tax. And besides, oil prices have come down. You know, you can afford it. The departure tax is also very easy to collect. So the comfort came from the fact that this was not hand-waving revenue, which our finance ministers, you know, have tried to fool us with year after year after year. This is rock-solid revenue. So, at the end of it, we end up with, we are going to have the balanced budget, unless something completely unexpected happens. Not only are we going to have the balanced budget, but we're going to have the balanced budget with a better tax system, with a fairer tax system that is easier to collect. And again, for those who are concerned about the redistributive impact, it is always better to deal with our collective welfare concerns on the expenditure side, because that can be targeted. And indeed, the budget had that in there too, because there was a massive increase in the allocation to PATH. And PATH is extremely well targeted. What is more, the introduction of the petrol tax and the departure tax was explicitly contextualized as part of a shift from direct taxes, which are income taxes, to indirect taxes like consumption taxes. So it was done for the right reasons, because those are better ways to collect tax in a country with weak tax administration, despite their best efforts, and a large informal economy, and the inefficiency of trying to deal with your welfare redistribution on the tax side, where it really belongs on the expenditure side. There was a commitment moving away from what I think is the headline issue, which is the fiscal budget, because I think that really is the binding constraint. There was some talk about the liberalization of ganja. Again, a broad growth promoting activity. It removes an unnecessary restriction on economic activity. There was continuing the infrastructure build out. And there was talk about privatization. The entire presentation was about the economic climate. What this looks like to me is that whereas a whole lot of things were done right in the 3 years coming up to the election, but the concern, the worry was that the conversation had not changed. That what happened was particular to circumstances, and there was this big risk of whether it was sustainable, whether it could survive a change of government. And coming out of that budget presentation, it seems to me at least that the conversation has changed, that the big risk has been removed, that we are going to continue, certainly based on this budget, with the kind of fiscal discipline that can unlock the potential for economic growth in Jamaica, which is enormous. We don't have big problems, you know. Jamaica has never had deep, big structural problems. Okay? We've just run it badly. We've run it badly by accumulating huge debts and just not getting around to dealing with them. And now that we know that dealing with fundamentals, dealing with fiscal discipline across 2 different administrations, we can now start to believe that the conversation about economics in Jamaica and economic growth has in fact changed. Fingers crossed, and I'm keeping my money here.